Welcome to A Bookish Moment. Learn more at itsbookishtime.com. And make sure to subscribe for all things bookish. We'll be starting soon. And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of A Bookish Moment. My name is Sarah Burr.
And I am JC Kenny, and it's so exciting to have a friend and fabulous author back joining us. So, Sarah, without further ado, I think it's time to get bookish.
Let's get bookish. Middle of the week, and of course, we are here with the wonderful Marilyn Levinson. Marilyn, welcome to A Bookish Moment. You're a friend of the Bookish Hour, so we're glad that we can have you here on this platform as we get ready to celebrate the release of Overdue or Die, which is the 7th book in your Haunted Library Mystery Series. Congratulations and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so good to be here, Jim and Sarah. It's always a wonderful place to come to visit. And I'm very happy to talk about my new book.
We're excited to talk about it. And a special hello to our viewers who are joining us live for today's broadcast. We've got Farmhouse Reader, we've got Mark Baker, we've got Muzan, we've got Leah Dobrinska. Hi, guys. Thank you very much for being here. If you have any questions for Marilyn as we continue the show, feel free to pop them into the chat and we will make sure to get some answers for you. Marilyn, for folks who may not be familiar with you and your series, do you mind just taking a quick moment to introduce yourself to some of our new viewers?
Well, first of all, you should know that my name in this case is Allison Brook, because that's what my publisher asked me to do, find a pseudonym. So, but everyone knows that I'm Marilyn. And this is the Haunted Library Mystery Series. It takes place in Clover Ridge, Connecticut, a made-up town, but based on a very real town. And my sleuth is Carrie Singleton. She is the librarian in charge of adult programs and events. And she has a friend who's a ghost, Evelyn Havers. She used to work in the library, and sometimes she helps Carrie. Sometimes she does not help much Carrie, but she is a good friend to Carrie, and she's a good advisor. And of course, there is Smokey Joe, the cat, who actually belongs to Carrie, but has become the library cat. And at this point in this book, Carrie is engaged to Dylan Avery, and she is looking for a site to have her wedding that really appeals to her.
That is a insurmountable task at points. I feel like.
Marilyn, one of the things I'm curious about is, can you tell us a little, you've kind of done a wonderful job of setting us up for book 7, talking about how now Carrie is looking for a place for the wedding. Can you give us a few more details about what happens in this book in particular? Because, by the way, folks, it comes out next week, next Tuesday, October 10th. Available for pre-order everywhere. So wait until we're done here and then go pre-order it. So now that I've done my sales pitch, Marilyn, tell us a little bit about this story in particular.
Okay. Well, first of all, in the book before, the library has acquired the building. The library is an old building, centuries old, and like many of the buildings around, they are centered around, they're focused around the green, and because this is an old town. And now, of course, these buildings are now, they could be a gallery and inn, and these all play a part in the stories that continue. In this book, the book before, the library acquired the building next door, which is really dilapidated. Well, they had it renovated and they added it on to, they had to expand the library. And one of the first things that happens in this book is this older woman comes to this meeting, which is to celebrate the new addition. And she claims that she is the owner of that property. And this was done against her will. And
Nice.
so they have to deal with that. And then as we said, Carrie is looking for the right setting. It's very hard because a lot of things are going on. Her fiance has just acquired a painting that was done by someone famous. Now, Dylan, in his own right, he's an investigator, and also his specialty, well, he doesn't do it that much now because he's trying to stay closer to home, but he would go after thieves to reclaim paintings and gems. Those were his specialties, and he really knew the art world. And it's just ironic that when he went to Chicago to pick up his Romeo is now behind. And when he went to pick up his old a painting that was given to his great uncle, he's assaulted, and he's usually a very strong, but he did not expect this, and he ends up in the hospital. Ooh. And the painting is taken, and he finds himself involved in the FBI tell him they do retrieve the painting, but it was taken by a syndicate. And what they do is it's like a series of cells, so nobody knows what people in the next town are doing. And what they do is individual gallery owners and people like that, they find artists to copy very well-known paintings of the 20th century. I limited it to that. And well, I won't, that's part of it. And then they Harry and Dylan end up in this man's home. He's a well-known collector, and Dylan spots one of the paintings as a copy, and he doesn't know if this man is in on it. And then the gallery owner in town, Gallery on the Green, she is murdered. So they don't know, is this close to home? Is the syndicate acting it close to home? And meanwhile, there's the wedding that has to be planned. And she's like Goldilocks. She doesn't like it. No, this is too formal. This is too this. Oh, I have a bad memory of a murder in that place. And so, but in the end, they do resolve it. And I thought one really special thing about the book is a new romance has bloomed. And I won't say with whom or who the two people are. But, and of course, there are a few more murders. I always have 2 or 3 murders. But it all is resolved in the end.
That sounds like there's quite a bit for Carrie to deal with in Overdue or Die. And Marilyn, we've got some folks chiming in on chat about how much they really enjoy your series. Muzan has said that she recently read book 5 and absolutely loved it. One thing I want to go back to when you were giving us kind of an overview of what's happening, and you mentioned Evelyn the ghost. And I love how just how normal that sounds, because this is a paranormal cozy mystery. And I'm curious, because we've talked with, especially when developing a book series, we've talked with a few authors who have said that it wasn't always their intention. Oh, kitty
Romeo, does he not look like Smokey Joe? Look at his tail. He has a fuzzy tail like.
Oh, hi, Romeo.
We've got a cat cameo. How what a beautiful cat.
Thank you. I'm such a proud mother.
With the with the paranormal element that you have, I'm curious, was when you were first beginning to brainstorm Carrie's story and her world, were you always set on having that paranormal aspect, or was it something that kind of came out as you were working on the first draft of book 1 in the series?
Well, I have to tell you, I have ghosts in other books. This is not something new to me. This is not a fad. And even in the very first book it was a children's book that I tried to write, I had ghost children, which appear in the 8th book. But I wrote a book called Giving Up the Ghost. It's about, there's a ghost in it. He's a completely different type of ghost. And in one of my children's books, I have a ghost. So while I've never seen a ghost, I think they exist, and I think this is sort of my tribute to them. So this is not, something fetish that I do. I had the ghost in the book from day one.
Day one.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me to a question for you, because I would think it would be an interesting challenge to write a ghost, because that's a fully fleshed out character in your stories, but their backstory is going to be way different than, say, from Carrie's. Because presumably, who knows how long the ghost has been around and what happened to them and what was their life like when they were alive. Could you talk a little bit about your process for, creating these characters with these backgrounds and these lives that are very different from all the rest of us?
Well, this is what I love about a series. And I find that I bet, Sarah, this happens to you too. I intuitively put a character in or an event in book 2 and it comes out in book 5, right, Jim? And so, okay. Now Evelyn is from the town. So in this way, she helps, Carrie with the backgrounds of some people. She also asks Carrie to help with other people whose lives she's involved. And I did that in a few cases. Now, Evelyn fell in the library at the leaving work one day. And you find out in one book that she, in a sense, was murdered. And that's another issue. So I do go into her background, and it appears very often. Also, she is related to this very unpleasant reference librarian who alas is murdered in book 2 or 3. And so Carrie, Evelyn, some of her relatives are not very nice. And so that's what I mean when I say that Evelyn doesn't always help her with, if she thinks a niece, one of her 2 nieces or nephews is responsible for something bad, which you find out that the one who's the reference librarian has done bad things, she won't help, she tries to hide it from Carrie. So that enters into it as well. And so I find I have a continuity of characters. And for example, when Carrie's father appears in book 2, and he ends up in the hospital because somebody beats him up. His roommate is somebody who appears in the next book, and he's the thief. And so I just have my characters all connect, and so I'm aware of it, and I use what I planted in the earlier books.
Your comment, Marilyn, that you made about planting something in book 2 and using it in book 5. In my most of the time, in my case, it's I planted it in book 2, forgot about it, and then realize, oh, wait, I have to do something with this later down the line. So, and because you are, this is book 7 in the series that's getting ready to come out, how have you managed to keep the world of Clover Ridge in all of these webs and connections that you've created? How do you manage to keep it organized, either in your mind or in your reference materials? What are some tips that you have for folks who are looking to write series and how to keep everything consistent?
Well, it would be very intelligent to have, I do keep a list of characters. That I learned from my agent. She had me do it for the first book, but after that, my books go straight to my editor. But I have learned to make a list of characters and places for each book, because I am constantly referring to them, and you forget about things that you've put in, and so I'm sure there are better ways than that, because I don't use any of these methodologies or things that people hire, rent, or they buy to keep things in order. But I do make a list of what of characters. also, when I blog, sometimes my blogging usually is about writing. So on one of my recent blogs, I wrote things to remember when you're editing a book. And the biggest one is make sure Monday follows Sunday, not Thursday. One book I did not, and because there were things that happened on the weekends. It's not, you have to really be aware of these things, especially when characters appear. And then when characters appear in the books, you have to remember that.
So then along that line, especially when you get to the point that you have in a fabulous series that is now 7 books long, do you, before you start writing the story, do you go through the plotting process to kind of provide a guide, or are you still able to kind of just say, okay, I'm just going to go with it and see what happens?
No, I always have themes for my books. They arise by themselves. As I said, this one has to do with artwork, but it came out of the last book because, and it just so happens that Dylan, has this background. It's not something I worked at, but in the last book, his uncle comes, they discover this body, and this other ghost appears, and he's not like Evelyn at all. And because he makes a lot of noise and people can see him, and nobody can see Evelyn but Carrie and her little cousin. But this one, he's like a burst of wind, and he goes to the library. So Carrie and Evelyn have to contain him. And so, yeah, and he's not a very, he's a little bit of a thief, but this painting legitimately belonged to him. And now it's Dylan inherits it. So it just seemed to follow through. I hadn't planned it, but we don't know what our minds are really working on, unbeknownst to us, right? I really think they get kicked into shape, like exercise, you try. I think we having written so many books, all of us, I think our minds have been trained to think the long haul. Mm-hmm. And I'm a little nervous because I'm starting, I'm going to be starting a new series, and I know so many elements that I want to keep in it, but I just hope I do it right. It doesn't matter how many times you've done it, you always hope you're doing it right.
I have a question about, and then we'll come back to Overdue or Die, but this new series that you've mentioned, what are some of the, or how do you approach creating a new world, especially since you've been in Clover Ridge for so long? How do you sit down and begin a new series again?
Well, years ago, I went on a trip, and I was very, very taken with the San Luis Islands off of Washington. And I can't, and it's funny because when we've discussed this in the Guppies, a lot of people were inspired by them to write series. Now, I do not have the mentality of someone who lives in the state of Washington. I'm from the East Coast, from New York, Long Island now. I lived in Brooklyn when I was little. So I am planting an island. See, this is a made up in the Long Island Sound. And it's going to have, ferries and stuff. And so I am creating really my own world. Do you know what I mean? See, when I wrote Clover Ridge, or even my other series, I had a definite places in mind. I changed them, but this is a little different, and it's a little scary. Also, I think that witches and ghosts have been a little overdone, and I have 2 ideas for paranormal elements that I will be using in this book that are different. So I really am creating a brand new world, a brand new place. And I have a lot of the elements in my head, but, I'm hoping they're going to work. You know what I mean?
Well, the way you write, Marilyn, I have no doubt that it will work because, you're such a wonderful storyteller. Leah, one of our viewers asked, can you tease a little thing about tease us a little bit about maybe book one of this new series? Are you that far enough along that maybe you can give us a teeny little bit of a hint?
Well, okay. The my sleuth is a woman. This, my books, I don't even, I suppose they're considered cozies, but they're not cozy. They inspire coziness because people have told me they reread them for the cozy feeling. And I mean to have that, but I mean, like, my characters aren't little goody two shoes, In fact, my sleuth this time is is a woman. She's like 44. She's a little disgruntled, and she has a teenage son, and he's very non-communicative. And so they live on this island, and so she's involved in a few things. Her father owns the general store, and this I did get from when I went on a trip in the St. Louis Islands. I just thought a general store is so good. I could have seen that in Greenport. They have one too, but this is what's far away is always more appealing. So she helps him out that. Then she's involved in the weekly newsletter, newspaper. And also the other thing is she's writing a memoir of her grandmother's. And so the issue that is going to be, that's it. So she has a lot of relatives on the island, and the issue is that her aunt and uncle, it's an aunt on one side, an uncle on the other, and they're married. They're at odds and one is the mayor and the other is the head of the council. They want something different for this island, and people are taking sides. So that's what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Lots of intrigue.
Yes.
And the so you're working on book one now.
No, I'm not. No,
oh.
I'm not, just in my head.
Oh, it's just you're in the story mapping phase.
I know my editor said, well, she tells Dawn, well, what is Marilyn working on now? Usually I thought I would have a vacation, or, I would have to be, anyway, so of course she'll see it first, but I'm still writing I still have a few more guest blogs to write and things like that. So I guess I've worked some of it out in my head, or a lot of it in my head,
Yeah.
And it sounds like we've got a lot of cool stuff to look forward to. And kind of going back to another one of the characters that you had mentioned earlier in the show, and had also made a little special appearance here. It looks like almost your cat Romeo, you said, reminds you of Smokey Joe. One thing that I wanted to touch base on, because I was thinking about this earlier today, and it's the presence of a pet in the cozy mystery. There are a lot of readers that I've seen out there that are like, I will not read a cozy mystery if it does not have a pet in it. And I began to wonder, other than pets being wonderful, what is the effect or the feeling that having a animal companion in these stories, what is it about their presence that really drives that passion in readers? And JC, this might also be something that you can chat about too, because you've had your cozies feature cats. And so I'm just curious, like, what is it about pets that people are like, I need to read about them?
Yeah, it's funny because I just wrote this article about cats and cozies for crime reads. I really, I go into the cat. Well, now the cat's in. In the Middle Ages, they were out. They were, massacred. And they say, and as I wrote in the article, that they say that's why the Black Plague went on for so long, because the cats, which would have killed the rats, were not. So I think, we have the idea of this cozy. It's really something in our minds because it's not even real. Because, as we say, a cozy mystery is an oxymoron, and the mystery, what's going on in the mystery, a few murders and stuff and nasty things, but the cozy smooths things over. And the same thing with the cat. We pet them. They're very sweet. But they're hunters. They have teeth and claws. And so there is this side. But I think when we think of cozies, we like the idea of the cat sitting next to It's Mr. and Masters, and of course they do what they want, cats basically, but they do love us. And there's something nice about a relationship between an animal and a person. And in my case, Smokey Joe finds jewels that nobody can find. Everyone's looking for them, but he inadvertently comes upon them. And number two, he actually saves Carrie. But there's a murderer there, and the cat, attacks her. So, there's that also. It's like the paranormal. It's another element. You could say, well, why are ghosts so popular now? Why are witches so popular now? It's just another element that adds to the story. And I think cats bring out, and dogs, they bring out the lovingness in us, and there's something very special about our bond between cats and dogs. And I think people like to see it. And so many people have pets. When I ask, when I'm doing an author takeover, and I ask people to tell me about their pets, I used to think of one pet. Some of them have so many dogs and cats. I'm amazed, and so many have pets. And pets are very important parts of our lives, and we like to see it reflected in the story.
I think that summarizes it very nicely.
Yeah.
And the fact that, and it's kind of ironic that pets bring out the good side of humanity, I think, in us, and that caretaker and that compassion. And I think that is an element of the cozy mystery that makes people so comfortable and relatable for it.
Yeah. And our viewer Mizan even mentioned that one of her cats likes to sit with her while she reads. So there we go, right there. Folks, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we've only got a couple of minutes left with you here, Marilyn, which is a bummer for us because it's so much fun hanging out with you. Before we have to say goodbye, again, your new book, what's the title?
Overdue or Die.
Overdue or Die comes out next Tuesday, October 10th. Pre-order it, like I said. So as part of the book release celebration, can you tell folks maybe where can they find you maybe this and next week online or in person in celebration of the new release?
Well, tomorrow, I thought the book was supposed to come out Tuesday, so I've arranged a few things this week. Tomorrow I'll be at a Cozy Mystery party from 3 to 5. So come there. I love author takeovers. I really enjoy them. And I'll be giving away a copy of Overdue or Die. And next week, I think it starts I have a book tour, a virtual book tour. And so I'll be on a lot of different blogs, etc. And I'll be around.
Okay. And so for your event tomorrow, where can people find that? Is that a Facebook event? Or?
Yes, a Facebook. It's a very popular Facebook group. It's Cozy Mystery Party.
Okay.
And I think if for folks who may not be familiar with what Facebook author takeovers are, Marilyn basically kind of commands the group for an hour or whatever the set time is for, and is able to, you're interacting with readers, you're chatting with them, you're asking them questions, they're asking you questions. It's a really great community experience.
It really is. It's amazing, and people respond afterwards. And I always try to answer the questions because I feel this is one of the very best ways of talking and chatting with people who like your books and read your books. And I also have a newsletter. You could get that through my website. So I always mention that at the takeover. So,
well, it looks like Cozy Mystery lovers have a lot to look forward to when it comes to Marilyn Levinson, or writing as Allison Brook. And so again, folks, Overdue or Die is out next Tuesday, October 10th.
Yes.
And Marilyn, thank you very much for being here with us and spending a bookish moment with us on this Wednesday. For our viewers, we do have another episode coming at you Friday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our special guest is yours truly. I will be, JC and I are going to be talking about my new series, The Book Blogger Mysteries, and all the fun things that are in store for us here at both A Bookish Moment and A Bookish Hour, which kicks off next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So folks who joined us live, thank you very much for being here. It's always great to chat with you. Marilyn, again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And we hope to have you back on when you have more bookish news to share.
Oh, thank you. It's been wonderful chatting. I really enjoyed it.
Well, we appreciate your time. And again, thank you for being here. And for those who joined us live, we appreciate your views. So until we meet you all again online, stay bookish. Bye, everybody.
Bye.